In this video, we're going to be drawing a modern NASCAR. In this case, it's Kyle Larson's number 5. We're going to do the line work in Illustrator and then bring it into Photoshop and do all of our color work. If you find this video helpful or interesting in any way, please like and subscribe down below. All right, let's get going. Okay, this is the drawing we're doing today. It's actually a combination of a couple different photographs that I found. I like this car, this unique paint scheme that he did. And then the background is of a different track shot, but I like this combination. All right, let's get into Illustrator and do our line work. Okay, here we are in Adobe Illustrator. This is all of the basic lines of the car itself that I drew out. In this case, not a lot of variation. I used this photograph as a reference. I changed the angle of it a little bit and tweaked the perspective just a touch, but used the same lines for the fence and track and so forth. Just blew that up to the size I wanted in here. Use it as a guide for my numbers and my basic logo and the paint lines on the car. Now, some of these logos we will bring in. We'll just borrow them and put them in here. Some of the NASCAR logos, the Hendrick Motorsports and so forth. But this Valvoline logo being such a drastic angle, this perspective here, you're never going to be able to tweak that. So I stick built this with the pen tool, line by line, got it in here where it makes sense and it is where it should be on the car. But it's kind of fun doing this paint scheme, these lines in here, this fuel fill and all that. Okay, the only other thing we have in here, I wanted to put a separate layer for this kind of wind wing cover on here so we can do a little reflection on that. So this is what that looks like. So later I can drop this in on top and put a little bit of highlight, a little reflection on that. Okay, there's our lines. The only other thing on a separate layer is our background lines. Let's get rid of this photograph. Here's our background lines. Basically, these are our fence lines, our safer barrier cushion blocks, and these are just catch wire safety cables up here. Okay, there is all of our lines for our NASCAR drawing. Now we will bring those into Photoshop and put some color on them. Okay, we have our line work here in Photoshop. Let's go ahead and make 3 copies of this line work. So take that layer over on the right, drag it down, and make 3 copies in that little plus sign. All right. We'll take the bottom one and go ahead and put in all of our base colors for our drawing. Looking at your photograph or whatever your reference is, we'll just pretty much copy those hues, those colors you have. So this is what I did for all my base colors. It does look like a coloring book at first. That just always happens that way. This green color for this fuel fill and just all these colors in here. And like always on my tires, I like to use this warm charcoal color instead of just black for my tires. Then later on some of the other line layers, we'll go ahead and do some shading. We'll put in black around here, creating some shadow and make this tires look more realistic. And because this is a speed shot, this car is moving, we're not doing any detail on the spokes or anything, so this is going to be kind of a blur in here. All right. Now on our next line layer, we'll open that up and start doing some shading. So this is what I've done on that first shadow layer. Okay, see what a difference that makes already. We can grab our magic wand tool and select these sections one at a time or in a group if we're stretching a panel together here. Select this area, back over here and a little bit around the front here, and grab our black and open it up really big, but turn the opacity down to about 5 and just start brushing in here, creating the shadow on the side and automatically creating a highlight on the top of this body line in here. See what that does? Same thing on the roof line and over on this far side on this right front fender. Looking at your photograph, it'll tell you where to put your shadows. You can select these areas, these white areas in here, and get in here. Same thing with the black. Back it off a little bit and just create those shadows, automatically making our highlights pop out here. Same thing on the front here. Selecting this lower section, just brushing in a little bit of black real lightly up here. Okay. And on this first shadow layer also, get in here a little tighter, letting some of this background show through it, because we're going to have this catch fence over here on our background later, and that will show through this window. So what I did on this windshield, let me show you, pull that away again, is select that and just brush in some black, and then open up our brush tool real big and just kind of brush in a shadow in here, leaving this open space in here, and then tightening it up and just creating what would be our A-pillar on the other side over here. All right. Same thing on the front. Just selecting these areas, these sections one at a time, brushing in black here, and automatically creating highlight on top. See that? See what that did? Now looking at this this front foil, this front spoiler section, so I have this kind of charcoal color in here. Selecting that with our magic wand tool, getting in here and putting our black here, creates a highlight on the outside. And then later, that background, that wall is that blue color, that real pretty vivid blue color. I wanted to have a little reflection on here. So I went ahead and selected this, took a blue a little darker than the wall, and just kind of brushed that in here. And I like what that did. It just gives it a natural reflection of what would be bouncing off that wall, even though this car's flying by at speed. Remember, this section right here is selected, so now you can grab your brush tool and some white, make it real small, and just brush along this edge and let it kind of blend in over here. And see what that does? It just helps give it that shape, gives the illusion this thing is rolling over. Okay? And maybe we're talking about the tires. We can get in a little tighter. Even though we're not spelling out Goodyear on these tires, I've kind of brushed in this yellow in here, and I got in real tight with the paintbrush tool and just brushed in a little bit of yellow in here and kind of drew out this R, and got my eraser tool and just scribbled things up in here. But once this thing gets backed off to the right size and all the other details in here, you won't see it. Your mind tells you it looks right. On this cap, same thing. We've gone in here and selected this section, put a little black here, a little black here, a shadow in here, which would be natural inside this wheel, and a little bit of white there. Same thing on this end of this cap in here. Black out here, a little bit of white in here, and it just gives it this shape. Later, when we put a top highlight on here, it'll make that thing pop. Okay. On our next line layer, you know what? Let's do some other logos first. Up here on this post, there's all kinds of logos on this B-pillar in here. So I put those all on one layer for sake of this tutorial. This is what our logos are on here. Just add some credibility to our drawing, okay? Now, for the rest of the sponsor logos, I borrowed most of them. I had to tweak some and shave them and so forth, but I put those on one other layer. So let me put those on the car, okay? That just looks like a Nascar now. It has all this writing on here, all this sign work, all this Chevy ID work, and all so forth, even the driver's name and his initials. Okay, so now we're going to open up another line layer and do more details. In other words, more shading and just some other little details to make the drawing pop. Okay, now see what we did on this. And in that next layer is that separate little piece we did. Remember this little, what would be wind wing area, this flip-flop area? I just want a little bit of shadow on here, but I wanted it on top of everything else we have going. So that's where I put that. See the other details we put in here, like on these fasteners that hold on this rear window cover where this vent area is. See what that does? It just gives a little shadows on each one of those, make those pop a little bit. And also on this B-pillar, this isn't flat. It has some shape to it. It's going to roll in right here. So by putting a little bit of highlight right there, it just gives it that shape. It gives it that dimension. See what that did? Okay. Same thing up here, even on this window frame around here. I just want to put a little bit of highlight over here just to make it pop. Okay, there's a lot of details like that on this layer. All right. That's our basic car, but now we're going to go in and drop in a little bit of top highlights just to make it come alive. Those little details that make a big difference. Okay, see what that does? Look right here, those little hot spot highlights that the sun will pop. Same thing on that cap we were talking about. Look on the inside of this wheel. See what that does? Remember this exhaust flange that we drew in here? Look what those top highlights do. Just makes it look a little more believable and just helps it to pop a little bit. Same with all these fasteners. Okay, even this instrument on here, and I don't know if that's a tack, if it's a, I don't know, pit entrance monitor, I don't know what it is, but a little bit of highlight streak and a little bit of top highlight on there, and it really makes a difference. Okay, all right, well that's how I render a little Nascar here. All right, next we're going to do our background. Now here are our background lines that we created in Illustrator. Drop those in, and to start with, I went ahead and did a little bit of shadow in here. These are our main straightaway fence lines, these panels in here, and these tough blocks in here, these cushions. But between there's going to be some shadow, naturally going to be some shadow even before we put any color in there. So I went ahead and dropped that in that first layer. All right, next let's go ahead and put in some of that color. Okay, there's our blue color on this fence and our basic asphalt color down on the ground. It's not too pretty right now, but we'll try to make it look a little more believable. Basically, you're trying to put in lines and detail to make your mind not take notice, make it look somewhere else and not paying attention to it, where it's just enough believable. Okay, so here's what I did on the track. I just got on here because we're moving at speed, so the marks on the track, the shadows, the gouges, and everything else, tire marks are going to go by at a blur. Even have this crazy line in here because you know there's been accidents on this track, so there's going to be some unusual shapes in with these streaks. So there's our track marks. There is our fence color with the shadows. Now for the background, I decided to just kind of put a sky background. Now on an earlier video that I had done on a couple different Formula One drawings, I did this kind of French blue background with a bunch of streaks in it to make it look like whatever's back there is screaming by. So that's what I did on this one. This is what that looks like. It's just enough to let you know that that's the sky, and this car is going so fast that whatever's going on back there is going by quickly. Okay, well there is kind of a quick overview of how to render Kyle Larson's number 5 Nascar. Well, thanks for watching. Please check out all the other videos we have on rendering insights.